All right, welcome into Rivalry Saturday, the Johnston RV Center Saturday preview. Johnston RV Center, I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, always online, johnstonrvcenter.com. Jim Dunaway as the middle square. Lance Taylor is here as well. Emily Grace McWhorter will join us in just a minute. She's on her way to Bama and Auburn in the Iron Bowl. We will definitely discuss that on the show. But, boys, I stayed up late watching a bunch of overtimes last night. Don't know how about you.
Yeah, I know I did. I know you did too, LT. 8 overtimes. It is a great overtime system until you get to overtime 3, and then it makes the NFLs look really good, which is bad. It's silly after that. Even more asinine after Auburn did it. Taylor and EG explaining to me what you have to do because one wants you to go into the student section, the other doesn't want to, and then you start switching sides of fields after every other 2-point conversion. It's an asinine system. Happy for Georgia that they got the win there. So impressed with Brent Key and Georgia Tech that they did what they did to them. I was thinking and tweeting all night long, if Georgia loses that game, LT, and then Texas beats A&M and would beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, we would have had a little cratering from the SEC. It would have been chaotic for the committee.
Yeah, we've always talked about, and I think our belief was you were going to have a bunch of like a bottleneck, bunch of 2-loss SEC teams, and therefore there would be a couple of 2 losses that would be sitting on the sidelines, not going to Atlanta, and they would already be in the college football playoff. And we always talked about what happens when that one team absorbs the 3rd loss, and we were kind of told below board, and I think a lot of people kind of figured out that that wasn't going to be held against them, but if you were to get there with 3 losses and absorb a 4th loss, I think it is a much different scenario.
The way I explained it to people,
fans were kind of excited about Georgia possibly losing that game last night.
Yeah. What I was telling people who kept saying, well, I didn't think you could be punished for losing the SEC championship game. I was saying Georgia would have been punished for losing that game last night. They wouldn't be in the playoffs going to Atlanta, so they wouldn't be punished for losing in Atlanta. They'd be punished for their 3 losses in the regular season, one of them being Georgia Tech at the end. And then they would go to Atlanta with an upside of getting the auto bid, but a loss would not have put them in the playoffs. So that's the way I explained it, and I believe I'm 100% right on that's the way it would have played out.
So does Joe Tessitore. He was 100% with you on that, Dunaway. But I think that's it. I think what people have to wrap their arms around is the 12 teams that are in going into conference championship weekend are probably going to be the 12 teams that are in unless something extraordinary happens, right? It's just seeding after that. So that was what would have killed Georgia is they would have dropped out of that 12. They would have gone into the SEC championship game outside the playoff, having to win their way in.
Yeah. I don't know if that's always the case with the ACC and the Big 12.
Maybe not.
Brownie. I believe that with the Big 10 and the SEC.
Yeah.
But, back to the playoff format, because where did we see it? Well, we saw it last week with Auburn and Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. The 2-point conversion is so dumb. I just don't understand why, because this is very equitable, why you don't both get the ball and you automatically go for 2s. And there's no way it's going to go 3 or 4 overtimes if you're going for 2 every time.
That's right. And I kind of thought Brent Key should have gone for 2 after that first overtime. I mean,
I did too.
Yeah,
I thought he would.
Yeah, you got your best 2-point play done away. I'm about to have to use it in the next overtime anyway. I mean, why? I don't know. I mean, it's easy for me to sit on my couch and say that, but I thought Dunaway run the best 2-point play you've ever had. Run it right there and go for the win.
I know, and eventually you get down to a play you got to make to win it. I understand that. But at that point, you got to go gut and momentum. And, I felt like we have been reeling here. Let's get our ways back here and see if we can and they did. They had a couple of stops there where they had a chance to win it. So they had several 2-point conversions to walk them off. So in that situation, it did not bother me him going for it because I felt like his team had been reeling there for that whole 4th quarter. It goes to overtime, and he scores it, a kick, equalize it, and you sort of feel like, okay, we're back on even footing now. I didn't have a problem, but I understand that eventually it comes down to one play, and you've got to walk it off.
Let me ask you both. I'll start with you, Lance, real quick before we move on from this. Just overview on this because Georgia is still in the playoffs and will be in the SEC championship game. But, Lance, this is a flawed team. I mean, they get dominated for halves at a time. I mean, Georgia Tech dominated that first half, and it has caught up with them a couple times this year in Tuscaloosa and in Oxford. I mean, I've said this week I think Georgia wins it all, but boy, I hate that pick right now. I do
Oh.
not like this Georgia team going into the postseason.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is we talked about this a couple of days ago that, hey, this game could really be fun because Georgia Tech's one of these teams when they play lights out, they can beat anybody. And, I made the point, well, if it was in Bobby Dodd, I think they would have a shot. Carson Beck has been so much different in Athens than he has been on the road. And, for them to play like they did in the first half last night in Athens, I mean, I don't know what to think about this Georgia team. And I think it goes back to something that we've said. There's really no elite teams in college football this year.
Well, we'll find out how elite, relatively speaking. You're right. I don't think we're going to be comparing this to 2020 or 2019 Alabama or teams like that, anybody this year. But I would say this. You're 100% right on Georgia. There's a tremendous amount of flaws. They seem to be the same kind of flaws that Alabama has on defense. You sit there and they had their system of running offense with King and his reading players and the misdirections and everything. It was a brilliant game from King at quarterback and the whole coaching staff at Georgia Tech. But for Georgia, it just felt like they were doing very little to adjust. I watched Ole Miss the same way. I mean, they kept, Mississippi State kept saying, we're not going to let you throw. And you let them just run it. But it kept the game short, and it kept staying in it for a long, long time. And I don't know about, Nick Saban's not there anymore in Tuscaloosa. I just don't know about the coaching adjustments and how I've seen Kirby Smart's staff painted into a box a couple of halves, like you said, Brown. I've seen Lane painted into a box a couple of times. It just seems like these coaching staffs now are getting suckered into a style of play. The elite teams, they can't break out of it. Yeah. Georgia's should have better athletes than Georgia Tech. They should be dictating the way the game's being played. Ole Miss has this year tremendously better talent than Mississippi State. But they let Mississippi State sort of dictate the way play was going to happen. Oklahoma last week, 100% dictated the way Alabama was going to play that whole game. And just if you're an elite team, LT, you don't let that happen.
Yeah, I just don't. Again, I think it goes back to it. Maybe we'll see. The rematch, Ohio State, Oregon. Maybe you feel like an elite team's coming out of that. But I don't know how you see this thing. I think it's a mess for traditional college football fans. I think it's pretty awesome just with all the chaos. I assume we get more chaos today. And I guess if you're a team like Alabama that's on the bubble, Vanderbilt over Tennessee, South Carolina over Clemson, USC over Notre Dame. Are those the three big ones?
Those are probably the ones. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to get a break, that's the break you're going to need. So let's talk about those. Two of those in the early window. It is the Johnston RV Center Saturday preview. I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. Travel trailers start as low as $149 a month. Fifth wheel savings of $45,000 and more. Johnston RV Center, I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. RV warranty forever. Make sure you got a lifetime warranty on anything that is new or previously owned that qualifies at Johnston RV Center. Also, Dunaway, you've had enough of the leftovers. Go get something fresh at Champy's Chicken.
Funny you say that. I got Maggie swinging by there on the way in from Mentone. She's on her way back, and that's what she's picking up for lunch today. Our friends at Champy's Chicken, Highway 119 in Alabaster. You got Sterling and the crew there, just tremendous folks, and they do a wonderful job. You stack up that unbelievable brined overnight deep fried chicken into a big bag. You take it to a tailgate, you win it up, or the hand-cut chicken fingers or the Mississippi Delta recipe tamales. It is so good. Champy's Chicken, champy'schicken.com, Highway 119 in Alabaster. If I can make one point before we get into the games, I did think last night Georgia Tech damaged the SEC, even though they didn't win the game, because in our belief system, at least my belief system, the SEC is a cut above everyone else. So I believe they deserve, 2 losses they're in, 3 losses, you get considerations. I believe that. But when you watch a Georgia Tech team doing what they did to Georgia last night, I think even in a loss with everybody watching in prime time on Black Friday, that game was sort of a standalone. I know there were other games going, but nothing as captivating as that. I think that was a good night last night for SMU. It was a good night last night for Miami. And I think it was a good night last night for Clemson, but specifically SMU and Miami. I feel like if they win today, regardless of the outcome in the ACC championship, because of what Tech did last night, I think both of those teams are in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I do think the biggest loser of the 2024 season has been the SEC.
I agree.
For whatever reason. It's kind of crazy because you would think even with teams not having the depth they've had in the past because of the portal, that the SEC would still have more depth than anyone else, and it still would kind of balance out, and you would have a lot of those 11-1 and 10-2 teams. But I agree with you also on the fact that if Miami and SMU both win their games today, I think they're in regardless of what happens in that ACC championship game. And, I ran into a Notre Dame fan last night. He was asking me about the USC Notre Dame game today. And I said, man, you don't even have to sweat that. Notre Dame can lose this game as long as they don't get blown out. And he's like, there is no way because of the Northern Illinois loss, we will get in with 2 losses. And I was like, they got to find 12 teams. Like,
That's right. I agree with you, Lance. I think I didn't say it like this, but last night I did the field. I tweeted out, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, Texas are in regardless. And I was very close to putting Indiana, Notre Dame in that category as well. But I think Indiana, Notre Dame, Tennessee, SMU, or Miami are in. And then the other one would win the ACC championship, Big 12 and Group of 5. And that's all your spots right there. I don't think there's any spots left open. I think those are your teams that'll be in the playoffs. It'll be Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, Texas, Indiana, Notre Dame, Tennessee, SMU, or Miami, and then the ACC, Big 12, and G5 champion. And the only thing that can upset that is Texas A&M winning their way into the SEC championship game and winning that one. If Texas A&M beats Texas today, then Texas could be in trouble, or maybe one of the ACC teams.
Yeah, I really do think if you're, one of these fringe teams, you got to have Tennessee lose to Vanderbilt, and you've absolutely got to have either Miami or SMU lose today.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask if either of those are possible. We're talking about all those games, so we'll find out along the way. Let's start with Michigan and Ohio State. Well, this is not the game you thought it would be. I mean, last year this is a massive game. Michigan on their way to a national championship, and this year it is Ohio State, a 19.5-point home favorite this morning at MyBookie.ag. Lance, total of 41. Fox Big Noon kickoff. Again, last night was somewhere around an 18-point favorite, and it went 8 overtime, so who knows? But this would appear to be an easy Ohio State win today.
Well, Michigan, in their 6 wins this year, they've averaged 212 rushing yards. In their 5 losses, only 122. This Ohio State defense is playing lights out. I don't see a path to victory for Michigan, but, this year has been insane, so who knows? I think it's been 1,829 days since Ohio State has beaten Michigan, which is really insane to think about, and give a lot of credit to Jim Harbaugh and the program that, he put together en route to building up to that 15-0 and winning a national championship last year. So they've lost 3 straight against Michigan, but Ohio State, to me, is coming off their best defensive performance. Say what you want about Indiana, but outside of that first drive, I mean, they completely shut them down, 151 total yards. Ryan Day is such a dick. He will do everything in his power to run it up on this Michigan team. So that's the thing. Like, I'd be scared. I stayed away from the game, but playing Michigan plus the 19, or even if it gets to 20, and you're sitting there and they've been competitive for 3 quarters. If Ryan Day has an opportunity to add 1, 2, 3 late touchdowns, he's going to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it'll be a bloodbath today if Ryan Day gets the opportunity to tack on points, because that's the only thing on the line. Ohio State's locked in. They're locked in, not to the Big Ten championship game, ironically, but they're locked into the playoffs. And I just don't think Michigan can score points today. Their defense is good, but I think Ohio State's defense is equally as good. And this is all about wearing those 3 losses in a row for Ohio State. Bloodbath for me in this one.
Bloodbath game, it appears, and the chat says it as well. Bloodbath game for everyone there. Ohio State 19.5-point favorite against Michigan. Tennessee's at Vanderbilt today in Nashville, 11 o'clock ABC game. There will be more Tennessee fans there than Vanderbilt fans. That's just the way it is for Vandy. 10.5-point favorite for the Vols, Dunaway. Total of 47. This is one of those. If you're Bama, if you're Ole Miss, if you're Clemson, if you're South Carolina, and you want to somehow backdoor your way at the last minute into this thing, this one feels like almost a must for you. Do you think, Dunaway, that Vandy has anything this late in the season for the Vols?
I really don't. They haven't. I said this on the show yesterday, so I'll repeat it now. They have not scored more than 24 points since they beat Alabama. So this offense has been, they scored 24 against Texas. They haven't been above that number since. This offense has run out of gas. Diego Pavia has run out of magic. I don't know if this will be a bloodbath because of Tennessee's ability to sometimes struggle to score points, but I'm leaning towards a bloodbath here. Tennessee with an easy win in this game today too. And I would say this, Tennessee's playing with the fact, and you can either use this as pressure or not pressure. You win today and you're in the playoffs. And to look across, and it's Vanderbilt, and I know it's a different Vandy team, but to me, Tennessee, with the motivation of just win this game and we're in the college football playoffs, I like Tennessee today by a lot.
Yeah, I do. I'd like to see Vanderbilt win this game because, I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but Vanderbilt, if they don't get to that 7th win, they're not necessarily guaranteed a bowl, because I think we've got so many bowl eligible teams, and you start to look at Vanderbilt, are they really going to travel? So it becomes a business decision if you are that bowl, and it comes down to Vanderbilt and somebody else. I'd love for them to cement that 7th win. With that said, their offensive line is falling apart. And Tennessee's defensive front is so much. I just don't think it can hold up against this defense from Tennessee. If Diego Pavia has some kind of ridiculous, I mean, he's had some of these games this year already. I just don't think Vanderbilt can hold up against Tennessee. I think Tennessee probably wins going away.
And maybe people may be confused, Brown, of what LT just said about Vandy. Well, they're bowl eligible. Well, yeah, they are. But keep in mind that 6 of the bowl games are eaten up in the playoff format now. And if the SEC didn't get 4 or 5 teams in, then there are SEC teams that are bowl eligible now that are going to these bowls that are, the Citrus, the Gator, the Vegas, what used to be the Outback Bowl. And I know the SEC has a lot of bowl tie-ins, but I mean, if Auburn beats Alabama today, they're bowl eligible. Arkansas is already bowl eligible. South Carolina is bowl eligible. You start going through the bowl eligible teams of non-SEC playoff teams, and I think you run out of bowl eligible, bowl tie-ins with the SEC. Now, in the past, other bowls have picked them up to fill in spacing. I just don't know how many of those that could be this year. So I'd hate to see any SEC team that's bowl eligible sit at home, especially Vanderbilt.
One more early window game, and this one becomes big potentially in the playoffs if somebody up in the top 12 loses, because Clemson plays host to South Carolina. This should be a fun game. 11 o'clock ESPN, 2.5. Clemson is the home favorite there, Lance, in Death Valley, a total of 49. This South Carolina team, they're getting a lot of talk. A lot of people would say they might be playing, if not the best, among the best football in the entire Southeastern Conference right now, even with 3 losses.
Well, after that 3-3 start, South Carolina's won 5 straight. And a lot of it is, this offense has really started to click under Sellers. For the first 7 games, they were 105th in the country, only averaging a little over 5 yards after the catch. The last 4 weeks, they're averaging almost 10 yards after the catch, which leads the FBS. Clemson, they've already got 9 wins for the 13th consecutive season. That only trails Alabama. Of course, Alabama has to win today, by the way, to keep that streak going, which is kind of amazing. But with all this said, man, I think people are kind of sleeping on Clemson. Like, everybody is talking about South Carolina is going to win this game. I ended up staying away from it. I kind of like Clemson. But South Carolina's pass defense really good. So I don't think Klubnik, he's had a really, really solid year. I don't think he can beat South Carolina alone with his arm. I think Phil Maffa, Clemson running the football, playing really sound defense, I think that's their key to victory. I do lean that Clemson wins this game.
This does seem like a true coin flip game because both seem to have the same thing on the line. They seem to play, styles of football that are a lot alike. I think it's a true coin flip game. Clemson's resume looks pretty good to me, especially, considering their only losses are Georgia and Louisville. And this would be the win they need that sort of would be a quality win that didn't end up in a loss for them. So I like Clemson and what they are playing for. They're sort of playing for an at-large playoff spot and then hoping that Miami loses to Syracuse, which is a possibility. I don't know if there's a path for South Carolina anymore with Georgia winning last night. But if there is, got to go win this game today.
Yep.
True coin
Starts with a win.
Yes, true coin flip game. Looking forward to this one as well.
But
All
just,
right, well,
just the
go ahead.
Brown, just the momentum Shane Beamer
Yeah.
and his team can have.
Oh, I
and,
agree.
You still have the opportunity to win 10 games. I mean, it's been a while. It's been before we were doing a show together. I guess Steve Spurrier did it at the back
back-to-back
end.
years.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go to the 2:30 window next in the Iron Bowl. But first, a reminder that Johnston RV Center brings you this show, I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, always online, johnstonrvcenter.com. johnstonrvcenter.com is where you find them online. They got great travel trailers, the fifth wheels, the RVs, all at great prices, so you can go see America and an RV from Johnston RV Center, an RV warranty forever. Make sure you got a lifetime warranty on anything that is new or qualifying pre-owned. They're at Johnston RV Center, I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, and always online, johnstonrvcenter.com. And before we talk about the Iron Bowl, Dunaway, good way to tailgate with the Iron Bowl. Whether you're going to Tuscaloosa or just host an Iron Bowl party, is right there in your house with Champies.
Yeah, I hope some of you have ordered that and you're on your way to Tuscaloosa today to enjoy that, or swinging by the easy to-go window there and taking it home. I've just texted Maggie and canceled my order. I told her, baby, I'm not going to be able to eat until dinner tonight. I just saw the Iron Bowl line has dropped to 10.5.
That is correct.
Oh, I just the nerves are too much for me to eat anything heavy right now. I may munch on a little cinnamon roll or something here in a second. But I will tell you, Champy's Chicken is the best year-round destination lunch and dinner location. Any office party, any event at your house, it is worth the trip to just get good Southern food right there at Champy's Chicken. Chicken on a stick, poor boys, the fried chicken that's brined overnight, the Mississippi Delta recipe tamales, all the sides. Highway 119 in Alabaster, champy'schicken.com.
Lance will tell us in a moment why that line has dropped at MyBookie.ag from 11.5 to 10.5 overnight. But first, Emily Grace McWhorter joins us. She is apparently the heat is out in EG's apartment. She's on her way to Tuscaloosa. You already geared up, EG. Got the car running? You got the car running?
I got to make sure that I'm bundled.
Hey, did the neighbors finally get evicted?
No, they're still there. But I took a melatonin for the first time last night, and I was out. So
Okay.
I for the Georgia Tech game, but it was worth it.
Yeah. EG, you're on your way to Tuscaloosa. You've spent some time around both teams all year long. I don't think any of us thought that the Iron Bowl would look this way, frankly, with Auburn just battling to get bowl eligible and Alabama just battling to get a rivalry win. I mean, that is not what I thought this game would look like this year.
No, this time last week when I was in Statesboro prepping to go down to Auburn for the Texas A&M game, I did not think the momentum would be so heavy in Auburn's favor. And we talked about it yesterday on the show that it felt like last week it was another one of those Auburn moments, if you will, where they claw back and then, they can't sustain a win. That was not the case. So I do feel like coming into this game, everything is working in Auburn's favor, which is a little odd considering it's also in Tuscaloosa. And Hugh Freeze would love to have this win, not only for his recruits, but to make some people kind of forget some of the woes of the season. That can all be solved with a win over Texas A&M, followed by a win against Alabama, making them bowl eligible.
Yeah, I agree. Eye-opening that if Alabama loses this game today, they're 4-4 in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't plausible. It seems like a big egg on Kalen DeBoer's record for first year in the Alabama Crimson Tide, but it's just I feel like Alabama fans are a lot more nervous than they expected to be at this point in the season.
Lance, I mean, when Dunaway said that, and I heard it this morning on game day, Lance, I had not stopped and computed that with a loss today, Alabama is 4-4. I mean, that just seems impossible.
Well, I mean, how many years did it take Saban to lose 4 games in conference?
No, once he got to go in that first year, it was bad. But boy, once you got to 2008, it took a while to get to 4 conference losses.
Here's the concern, and I think we talked about this earlier this week. If they were to absorb a 4th loss, which I never thought was possible until a week ago today, when I saw Auburn play the way they played against A&M offensively, and then Alabama as bad as they were against Oklahoma. But if they were to drop to 8-4, you're going to get a lot of opt-outs for the bowl. You're going to get a lot of guys that are transferring out. I don't know what the roster is going to look like. I think it's going to be depleted, and that might be an overstatement. With that said, then they could go 8-5. I don't even know what to say at that point. Like this loss at home against Auburn would be it would be debilitating to this program, I believe. You know, they just allowed a season high 255 rushing yards to Oklahoma. And you look at this Auburn team, although they're 2-0 over their last 2 Iron Bowls, they've allowed more than 600 rushing yards. And now Jarquez is running the football at a high level. Cam Coleman has found his groove. I think Peyton Thorne's playing with a lot of confidence. I mean, you got Auburn going this way over the last couple of weeks, and Alabama's going this way. So I don't know. It's a scary, scary game for Alabama.
And EG, one of the reasons Auburn is going this way, you were there in Jordan-Hare. They blew a 21-point lead, but then they were able to come back and ride that wave of emotion. I don't know what their mindset would be if they'd lost that game in overtime. It's just kind of wild that has really, it feels like one overtime has kind of changed the whole feel for this team.
Yeah, I mean, it completely has. I think it's changed the confidence of the players because all season long, Auburn's record was not necessarily indicative of the games that they were playing in. And in some ways, that's even more disappointing to that team because they found themselves in it week in and week out and couldn't complete it. Then you have Texas A&M come to town. You arguably kind of ruin their season in a sense. Inside of Jordan-Hare, you have all those recruits there. It seems like this is a time that they're peaking. On the flip side of that, you have Alabama, who goes to OU expecting it to be, I don't want to say an easy win because I didn't get that, vibe in the, facility. But to college football fans, that should be an easy win. And then you come on home to the Iron Bowl, and then hopefully you're cruising into the SEC championship. And in one night, everything got turned on its head. And I think that momentum was what's going to carry Auburn into this game. And another thing is that Peyton Thorne, the way he was playing last week, was a quarterback with nothing to lose. He even said, he was like, I'm putting my body on the line. I've got, nothing else really. What do you think his mindset is going to be this game? And I think that's something that, hopefully Alabama has prepared for. And I also point to this swarm defense and the yardages that they've allowed. Jarquez Hunter is a running back that can take advantage of that.
Yeah. Signature win for Peyton Thorne if he wins this one today. This would be his lasting Auburn moment. Yeah.
And it would make some of the, like I said, woes of the season seem a little more digestible to Auburn fans.
All right, EG will be there with Little T, Taylor Corn. Today is Taylor's birthday, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right about that, EG?
It is.
Yeah. Little T's birthday today on an Iron Bowl. What could go wrong? And she shares a birthday with Bo Jackson. Did you guys know that? I did not realize Little T and Bo Jackson shared a birthday.
It was
is that not why she wears the Bo Jackson jersey?
I guess so. I just thought she wore it because he's an Auburn legend, but maybe it's because they share a birthday. So happy birthday to our social media director, Little T, one of the best, Taylor Corn. All right, so EG and Little T will be down there, so see all that at Next Round Live. And then post-game, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Both giving you a reaction to this game. Covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Join both for $1 for the first month. Some great content from post-game and then all throughout the week, and those message boards as well. Covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. All right, EG, be careful. Have fun over at the Iron Bowl, okay?
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. We'll see you. Emily Grace McWhorter on her way.
I do believe, and I don't know where you guys fit on this, this will be Jalen Milroe's last home game.
Well, Dunaway asked, is it his last game, period, at Alabama on the show yesterday?
I didn't ask. I said it would be. And here's my thinking, LT, and I'll tell you why that's the case. And I'm glad to hear you say it because I haven't had a lot of people sort of back me up on that. In fact, it's been, the Milroe haters. And I'm not a Milroe. I love Jalen Milroe. I just feel like if he is going to the NFL and you're not in the playoffs, it's a meaningless bowl game. And if you're going to the NFL, you opt out. And I just don't think he'll be back if he's not going to the NFL as Alabama's quarterback. I just don't think he fits what Kalen DeBoer wants to do offensively. So I believe it's NFL or another school for Jalen Milroe. In either situation, you don't play in a bowl game that's not the playoffs. The only way he plays for Alabama, again, in my opinion, is if they sneak into the playoffs, and I just don't think that happens.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I think what ultimately happens here is it becomes a business decision, and everybody, I think Brown used that lightly to describe his lack of effort on the pick six against Oklahoma. And I think if they were to win or lose today, and obviously they don't get to a college football playoff, I think his Alabama career is over. I think he probably will get bad advice, and somebody will tell him, his camp will say NFL is the path. And I think he's going to be late second, early third. I think it would make more sense because I've just got a feeling that Alabama's ready to move on. And I'm not saying I've heard that. With that said, I think he could get $4 million in the portal to go play another season. And if Jalen Milroe can somehow put the consistency together, then I think Jalen Milroe could be, one of the, top 5, top 10 guys taken in 2026. I think that ship has sailed this year. Good Jalen are great. Good Jalen is the best player in college football. Bad Jalen is really bad. And so I think the inconsistencies have been too much. I just hope it's not like a mental thing for Jalen. He's talked about his battles with anxiety, and, he just looks like such a different player against Tennessee and against Oklahoma to what he looked like against Georgia and LSU.
Yeah, and I agree, LT, that it's either, it could be that, it could be bad advice on what he's being told he should be doing or not doing. Whatever it is, it has not been, the appearance has not been what Peyton Thorne talked about last week. I'm going to throw my body on the line every play. I've got nothing else to play for. Well, Jalen Milroe believes he's got something else to play for. So, at times, like not knocking that guy out of bounds last week, that he made, as Brown put it, a business decision there. I don't think that resonates very well in the locker room.
Lance, why has this number dropped a point? At MyBookie.ag, it was 11.5 all day yesterday. I looked this morning, like I always do, to get ready for this show. 10.5 all of a sudden. Total of 52.5 for the 230 ABC kick. Why is that the smart money we always talk about?
Yeah, I think it is more so smart money. But there's a lot of public money on Auburn. This is one of those games that, before the number came out, people were asking me, what do you think it's going to be? And I said, I think it's actually going to be 14 just because Alabama, all their numbers get inflated in Vegas. And it came out, around that number, and it just continued to drop because the money's pouring in. People just think this number's too high. Talking to other people, they were like, this number should be 7. And, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Like, I think it's going to go one of two ways, honestly. And this always sounds weird to certain people, but I think Alabama either covers the 11 or they lose the game.
Yeah.
Like,
there's no in between.
Alabama, you get really good Alabama or you get really bad Alabama. Really bad Alabama is going to lose this game. Really good Alabama is going to walk Auburn off the field.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with you. This will either be an Auburn win or Alabama comfortably.
Okay, there you go. So we'll maybe make a prediction at the end of this. Lance did not play this game, so you can make a prediction. No play on this one at lanceslock.com. Were you close to playing it at Lance's Lock, or did it not really make your rundown?
No, well, honestly, if I would have played it, I would have laid it. I would have taken Alabama, but I just you can't trust this team. You just can't.
Back when you knew people that ran books back in the day, did y'all ever give out? Like, do you have a sense of who Alabama and Auburn fans were? Did you give out different numbers for games like this, like a little edge to Bama on one side, a little edge to Auburn on another side?
Well, it's funny you say that because there was one example of that, and I'll never forget, like Minnesota, and this is why you just don't mess with numbers at all, try to manipulate them. But the Vikings had a 4-game preseason. It was under Dennis Green, where they whipped the dick out of everybody. They won like every preseason game by like 25-30. And then the regular season, the first line, I'll never forget it. They opened up against Green Bay. And the real line was like Minnesota won. And everybody was talking about the game. And so we were like, we got to inflate this thing. And we put it at like Minnesota 4, and it scared some people off. And of course, Green Bay ends up winning the game. And at that point, that's when I was like a 19-year-old learning the business. And I was like, you can't manipulate numbers. You just gotta trust with what Vegas does with it and just let it roll there. But there are local guys. I've seen it in the past where, they will mess with a number, a point or two here and there.
So basically, if you would have kept it at Minnesota 1, you'd have probably taken all the money you could on Minnesota 1 and would have kept it. Yeah. Live and learn, right? Live and learn.
That's why you're better in your 20s than you were in 19.
Right.
All right, let's stay in the 2:30 window. 2:30 CBS game. Lance has a special rooting interest in this one. Steve says it's the 50th anniversary of the historic USC Notre Dame game, 1974. Lance, you want to walk us through what makes that historic?
I don't, Brown. I really don't.
Well, they will play today. Maybe it's a historic game of its
Is
own.
Notre Dame, are they busting out the green today?
I don't know. I have
Is
no
that what
idea.
it was? It was
Yeah,
green jerseys?
I think it was.
Okay, the old green jersey game. Well, I will tell you this. Notre Dame is a 7.5-point road favorite at USC. We were debating this, Lance. You lived out there. Total of 53. You've got to play on this at lanceslot.com. What do you think the crowd breakout is for this one? First of all, it's a 12:30 Pacific time kick, so I think it's going to be a little bit of a dead crowd, but a lot of Notre Dame, a lot of Catholics live out there. Notre Dame fans, only chance to see them.
They've got a huge following in Los Angeles. I think it'll be 50-50. Now, I do think you get the benefit of the holiday weekend and a lot of family and friends in town, so people have planned on going to this game because it is a huge rivalry game. And, I think the crowd will be really good today, believe it or not. Here's a couple of things to look at. This USC offense has not been a traditional Lincoln Riley offense. They've only gone over 30 points 4 times this year. And, they're leaning on a former Mississippi State Bulldog in Woody Marks. I mean, that's really how the offense is kind of funneled through number 4. Jaden Maeva took over this offense, the UNLV transfer a couple of weeks ago. He's been pretty good. He's getting more and more comfortable. USC has been a fast starter that finds a way to blow fourth quarter leads. Notre Dame has been a fast starter that knows how to choke teams out in the fourth quarter. So USC's path to victory here is going to be to get out front of Notre Dame and make Riley Leonard beat him with his arm. And Maeva can't turn the football over. Notre Dame leads the country right now with 26 takeaways. Notre Dame is playing at an extremely high level. I think right now they're one of the top 3, 4, 5 teams in all of college football. But this is going to be an interesting game because USC has just enough weapons on offense that they could have something for Notre Dame here.
Yeah, better at the Coliseum this year for USC, and you said it'd be a good crowd. My question is, how many of those will be Notre Dame fans with the 12:30 local time kick? And we all know Notre Dame fans are everywhere, especially there in the West Coast. So.
Yeah, I think you'll get about, I would say 80,000 today, and I think it's probably like a 40,000, 50-50 split.
Yep.
Yeah.
Steve updates me. Notre Dame jumped out 24-0 in that 74 game. USC won 55-24. USC closed on the old 55-0 run. That's that'll get you beat every time.
Was that in the Coliseum, Steve? I think I remember that's one of those early memories of watching college football. I still remember
Wow.
Did at some point a big kickoff that sort of flipped the script or something. Anyway, I remember a game like that at some point.
Dunaway not in the Coliseum today is Miami Syracuse. This is a huge game in the ACC. If Miami loses, Clemson plays SMU in the conference championship. If Miami wins, Miami plays SMU in the conference championship. In the Dome, Miami is an 11-point favorite, total of 67.5, 2:30 ESPN kick. Lance has a play on this one, Dunaway. Interesting game in the ACC today. Miami plays everybody tight for 3 quarters.
Yeah, I fooled everybody on the staff except EG yesterday, Lance. I asked everybody in the room, I was like, how many wins does Syracuse have? Brown went 6, I believe.
That's what I guess.
Forrester went 5, and then EG went, they've got 8, I think. And I said 8 is the correct answer.
Yep.
They're the sneakiest 8-win team in college football, and they're better at home. Kyle McCord, they score more points at home. They play better defense at home. This is a dangerous game for Miami. Miami's better than Syracuse is. Cam Ward's better than Kyle McCord. But this is one of those games that Miami cannot do what they've done several times this year and fall behind and wait for the fourth quarter to score 3 touchdowns and come back. If they're behind that much late in this game, Coach Fran Brown will figure this one out.
Yeah, look, and Fran Brown's done a great job. I mean, you're right. Sneaky 8 wins. Kyle McCord, the transfer from Ohio State, has played at a high level. I mean, he's putting up massive numbers. It's a weird number, though. Like, Miami to be 10 to 11-point favorites in Syracuse. I mean, that seems like a big number to me. I mean, Miami, all of their games come down to the fourth quarter. They all come down to 1 possession. And it's usually Miami coming back and Cam Ward finding a way to win these games for the Hurricanes. And now they're playing one of the better teams they've played this year, and they're laying double digits on the road. Number doesn't make a lot of sense.
So the number that Lance talking about is 11. So he says it doesn't make a lot of sense. Lance'sLock.com if you want more on that one. The other side of that, Lance, is SMU Cal. It is being played in Dallas. Cal is a 13.5-point road dog, total of 55, 230 ESPN2. SMU's in the conference championship game. But if you're looking for chaos in front of you, if you're one of these teams outside the top 12, this one would have a chaotic feel to it if Cal's able to get the win here.
Yeah, Cal's like a really, really poor man's Alabama. And by that, I mean, they're so inconsistent. Like when Fernando Mendoza shows up, I mean, Cal, and he starts dealing, Cal's one of these teams that can score 40 plus and they can play with anybody. And, you know, if he does show up, I think Cal's got a shot against SMU today. SMU cannot afford a loss, obviously, because you help me out here. If SMU did lose but ended up winning the ACC championship game, where would they be? Like, how far do they tumble with a loss today?
I think
probably
they're
5-6 spots.
I've got them 9, so 10, 11, 12, depending on. I don't think they'll drop them too far, but I think they would drop them around Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, somewhere in that cluster.
I would just say Alabama dropped 5 spots, losing to Oklahoma. Indiana dropped 5 spots, losing to Ohio State. So it feels like 5 spots is their penalty drop, Jim. I mean, that's the only reason I said that.
And with Tulane losing, I know there's no way now Emily Grace's prediction's gonna come through, but we could still have an ACC or a Big 12 left out, right?
Could. I mean, it would be
no for an ACC or Big 12 to be left out. You have to have 2 group of 5s.
Is that right?
Yeah.
There's no way UNLV would climb high enough if they happen to.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not happening. Tulane needed to be the team or Army needed to be the one. Army, if they'd beat Notre Dame, could have churned out enough. But it needed to be Tulane winning and then some chaos to happen. Usually in the Big 12.
One of those games, you know, we talk about there's so many games that are like 10, 11, 12-point favorites today. Tulane was one of the bigger upsets already this week.
Yeah. And they got beat pretty badly.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was wire to wire.
Yeah, I was stunned at that. One more 2:30 window game, Lance. You got to play on this one. It is the Territorial Cup, 2:30 on Fox. Arizona State, a road 8.5-point favorite, total of 53.5 as they play at Arizona. This has Big 12 championship game implications, thus playoff implications with Arizona State.
Well, and this is a revenge game for Kenny Dillingham. I mean, Noah Fafita career high 527 last year in the Territorial Cup, 5 touchdowns. And they ended up winning that game by 36 points. And Dillingham is one of those guys that would love to run it up on Arizona if he gets an opportunity. Cam Scatterbo, if you haven't watched him, is one of the more fun running backs to watch in all of college football. And they've won 4 straight games in a season for the first time since 2016. I didn't like the way it ended against BYU. Arizona State now has become one of those teams that's hard for me to pull for. But I think this is kind of like the Auburn-Alabama game. I think Arizona State wins this game going away, or I think Arizona wins the game outright.
So you're telling me you don't like Kenny Dillingham is what you're telling me there.
It was a bad look. I'm going to give him a pass, but, you know, just in the moment right now, that was just not a good look.
I didn't like the way it looked either. I'm told, never been there, I'm told a game in Tucson, a rivalry game in Tucson, and this rivalry is like Jordan Hare Stadium. Anything can happen. So trouble for Arizona State today. They'll have to overcome Tucson and the Arizona team that really has nothing to play for except ruining Arizona State's season.
Okay, so get there early for Wildcat Walk and the Wildcat flying in from the upper deck.
When they throw the Wildcat off the upper deck,
okay.
Peter doesn't like it, but it is insanity.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go to the primetime slate. A reminder, the show presented by Johnston RV Center, I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. It is Thanksgiving weekend. One of the things we're so thankful for in this show is the United States military and what you have done for all of us. They are the same at Johnston RV Center. We all know we cannot say thank you enough, but a small token of their gratitude is a great discount they give you. Whether you're active duty or a veteran, just ask about that at Johnston RV Center. I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, always online at johnstonrvcenter.com. Also, Dunaway, Champy's world-famous fried chicken.
That's right. Just delicious food there, and that's because Sterling cares so much about it, right? He brines the chicken overnight, his seasoning ready to go the next day. Everything's cooked to order. So it's not sitting under a lamp or anything. It is a cooked to order situation there when it comes to that deep fried chicken. Just imagine how crispy it is, how piping hot, juicy down to the bone. He's got the hand-cut chicken fingers and so much more. Great appetizers like the Conecuh sausage, cheese, and pickle plate, and the Mississippi Delta recipe tamales. It's all right there. Highway 119 is Champy's Chicken.
All right, Lance, we will start with a game that really has no meaning except for maybe Brian Kelly's backside. LSU, a 6-point home favorite. Oklahoma is on the road there in Baton Rouge, total of 47, 6 o'clock ESPN start time. Again, this game doesn't really have a ton of meaning, but you've got to see if Oklahoma can rebound, or not rebound, but double up on what they did last week against Alabama.
Yeah, and I go back to where the bleeding started for LSU. It's when Marcel Reed came in at halftime. And then the very next week, you had Jalen Milroe run all over them. Now Oklahoma's coming off a game, which is so weird. If you would have said Oklahoma beats Alabama because Jackson Arnold running the football, nobody would have believed it. I don't know where Oklahoma gets their offense, especially now on the road. I think LSU ends up winning this game, but this would be one of those, much like Kalen DeBoer taking on a fourth loss. If LSU was to take on another loss, I don't know what the future is. I don't think they can fire him. I don't think it would be the right move. There's obviously a disconnect. I think there's more internal stuff going on. And that's another thing we need to look at with LSU. LSU has become one of these dysfunctional programs, too, that finds ways to win national championships. But, behind the scenes, they had all these problems with Les Miles, with Ed Orgeron. Now you bring in what is believed to be a championship-level coach, and it's getting worse each and every year.
Some reason I like LSU in this game. I think it's because of Oklahoma winning last week against Alabama and putting out on tape something LSU could work on. I don't think Oklahoma has a path that they can throw the ball to win this game, so they've got to run it. LSU's got some time to work on it and correct the problems that Alabama did not correct last week. That being said, I agree with you 100% on what it is, almost with more success what Florida has become, where Florida, they were so good under Spurrier, but always seemed to leave a little on the table, only one national championship. Then they struggled to find the next guy. They got Urban Meyer, but it was so bright, but so quick. And then since then, they've just struggled to get any momentum going. And you just feel like maybe we're at the beginning of that with LSU. You hope you're not at the beginning of that with Alabama. But that seems to be the cycle of college football, right? That you get really great moments, and then you go into a cycle of no continuity and a lot of pitfalls. And it feels like Brian Kelly right now, not a good hire at LSU, and you're so tied to him financially. It may be just Jimbo Fisher Part 2 when it's all said and done.
Speaking of Dunaway, Florida, they play at Florida State tonight, 16.5. Did you ever, we've said a lot of this year. Did you ever think in the preseason?
No.
Florida would be a 16.5-point road favorite at Florida State, total of 45.5, 6 o'clock ESPN 2. But you just mentioned Florida. Billy Napier, everything has moved in the right direction for him in November.
Yeah, we thought the Iron Bowl would be maybe 9-2 Alabama versus 8-3 Auburn today. There was no way you imagine what Florida State would be coming in. And truthfully, a lot of people at one point didn't think Florida would be where they are, bowl eligible and a chance to get a 7th win today. Mike Norvell, what do you do with him moving forward? You just give him a pass this year because this has been a disastrous season.
Yeah, I don't, and it's funny you bring up that number, Brown, because I think if you would have given me before the season every number throughout the season, this might be the most surprising one. Because, we talked about Florida. There was no chance Billy Napier was going to survive, probably fired in season. With that schedule, 4-8 was probably what they were looking at. And then everybody said Florida State's not going to drop off that much. They have dropped off significantly and then some. But for Florida State to be catching more than 2 touchdowns against Florida is baffling. But I think Florida's playing just great football right now. They're identifying playmakers. Johnston running the football, Badger on the perimeter, what Lagway's been able to do. And I think the most important thing, and you don't see this a lot right now, and this is kind of sad, but they're playing like a team. Like they play like they care about each other. They play like they've got a purpose. And it really all was kind of a rallying point once Scott Strickland gave that vote of confidence. They decided, hey man, we're gonna we're gonna run through the tape on this one, and then they've been playing like that.
And to your point, you on the point spread every July, what is it? The Dusty Nugget, the Golden Nugget, whatever.
Golden Nugget, yeah,
puts out those first lines. You say you could have gotten Florida at 13.5 today. All of a sudden, it's a big 30-point swing on what the betting line is. You'd be getting 13.5 instead of giving 16.5.
I feel good.
You're limited on what you can bet on those preseason lines like that, right, LT?
Oh yeah,
I think, yeah. So
this is why.
This is why, right? Because by the time you get to game week, the teams could look so different. But I would imagine if there was and they do put out some rivalry games, if there was a Florida State-Florida line, I would imagine you were getting 2 touchdowns with the Gators.
Lance, you have a play on the big revival. Texas at Texas A&M. Texas a 5-point road favorite in College Station. Total of 49, 6:30 ABC. Pete Thamel reporting this morning on ESPN. The Quinn Ewers has a high ankle sprain and is limited in this game, but will play. That is a significant report, especially for anyone that is playing this game at lanceslock.com.
Yeah, look, I mean, Ewers has been really inconsistent too. Now, his lows aren't like Jalen Milroe lows, and his highs aren't Jalen Milroe highs, but he has been really inconsistent. He looked a little off last week. He looked like he wasn't comfortable. Texas has now won 10 consecutive games for the first time in back-to-back seasons since they did it from 2001 to 2009. So, Sarkisian, I pointed out the fact that last year was the first 10-win season. Got to give him credit. I don't know how good this Texas team is, and everybody knows where I stand on this game. I've said it all year. I think A&M wins this game. Le'Veon Moss out of that lineup has been big for Texas A&M on the negative side. I think A&M is going to have to do it with Mike Elko defense tonight. But I do think that Quinn Ewers, the injury is going to be a factor, and I'm going to stick with it. I think A&M wins the game outright.
I'm going to go the other way. I think it's going to be the Longhorns. Chaos. It'll be crazy in there, but I think in the end, Texas has better players, and they make the plays at the end. Running game has been fairly consistent. The receivers, Isaiah Bond, he's had a little bit better year, but about the year. But they've got other younger receivers that have come on. But it's the Texas defense and that defensive line that has improved more than I thought they would do this year. I actually think Texas wins this game on defense tonight. In a low-scoring game, I'll take Texas. In a game that'll end up looking a lot like Texas and Arkansas did, I'll take Texas about 20-13, 20-14. And
one final game to look at. Washington at Oregon tonight, Dunaway. This was a much different rivalry last year, obviously, with Kalen DeBoer still at Washington. Washington on their way to the Pac-12 championship of college football playoff. Oregon is an 18-point favorite this year, though, and Eugene, total of 51, 6:30 NBC game. As you know, Dan Lanning has never won this game. Boy, It feels like he's got a shot to this year, though.
I think he's 0-3 against Washington, and apparently along the way, Kalen DeBoer and the Washington folks rubbed it. I don't know if Kalen rubbed it in Dan's face, but that rivalry is more intense than I think we down south realize, that they don't like each other so much. So that has become an important win for Dan Lanning. I think this could be a good old-fashioned motorboating right here, too. I'll take Oregon and give all the points in this one. Oregon easily over Washington.
Yeah, I think it will be kind of a payback game because I think it was magnified. Not only that Dan Lanning is 0-3 against Washington, but what those losses to Washington actually did. This game has there's no implications at all. I mean, Oregon can win this game by 70, or they could lose the game, and they're still, going to be playing for the Big Ten championship, and they're still in the college football playoff. That is one of the unfortunate things about having the 12 team as a game like this. Really is meaningless.
All right, on the record, how the Iron Bowl goes in 1 second. But first, Johnston RV Center brings you the show. I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, always online at johnstonrvcenter.com. Go see America in a travel trailer starting as low as $145 a month. A fifth wheel, $45,000 of savings and more at Johnston RV Center. I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, johnstonrvcenter.com, and Champy's world-famous fried chicken. Dunaway.
Yeah, right there on Highway 119 in Alabaster. It's a wonderful destination lunch location when you get a chance during your work week, or if you're traveling by the Alabaster exit. It's right off I-65, the exit there. Champy's Chicken, Sterling and the crew, the best brined overnight fried chicken, and the Mississippi Delta recipe tamales.
I think 27-17. Alabama wins it. So if you play the game at 10.5, that half point becomes very, very meaningful to you. But Lance, I got Bama 27-17.
Man, this is one of those that I'm completely baffled.
It's tough.
Yeah, I could see any scenario play out. I could easily see Auburn win this game, but I could see Alabama win going away. So I am going to say that Alabama wins going away, just because if really good Alabama shows up, I don't think Auburn's got a shot. So I'll say Alabama 35-20.
Can Alabama stop the run? Roman Harper tells us it is a flaw in the system, the scheme, and you can't change scheme in a week. So can Alabama stop the run? And if they are up selling out to stop the run, what does that mean for Cam Coleman and the receivers, Keandre Lambert-Smith on the backside? I'm not going to pick Auburn because everyone would think I'm just playing a shtick here, but it's tremendously worried about this game. I'll take Alabama in the win. I feel like it'll be a 30-20 type game, Alabama. But can Alabama stop the run? Because if it's anything like last week, I think Auburn's going to bring better runners into this game than what Oklahoma had last week, and a better offensive line. So I'm extremely worried about this game because of what Alabama has put on tape.
Lance, you're about to go live, lanceslock.com, and win at Lance's Lock. You got 10 plays today. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I got 10 plays. I don't know if I've ever had 10 plays on.
That was odd to me. You're normally odd number guy.
Yeah. I had 15 plays yesterday, and I was back and forth on 5 different games. Ended up just tapping out on those games, and I've got 10 up. We'll see what happens. Right. Thanksgiving was a disaster. It normally is. You guys know that.
Yep. That's been a trend.
It started out nice because I had Chicago with a little backdoor against Detroit, and then it fell apart. And then yesterday, it really came down to Stanford and San Jose State. I don't know if you guys watched that.
Nope.
Just terrible play calling at the end there for Stanford. And they ended up getting backdoored.
By the way, Eberfluss got fired. You were not you're not with us on Friday. You were out of town with family. Is that the worst end of game management you've ever seen at any level of any football?
And for the record, I got to sleep in on Friday. I did go out of town, but it was awesome. Black Friday off is the way to go.
Is that the worst game management you've ever seen?
Yeah, I mean, and you wonder, they've been wanting to fire this guy, and he looks lost. I don't know if you guys saw him going into halftime. He's like, this offense, we're really close. And they were down, I forgot at that point, they had 2 first downs the entire first half, but it did pop in the second half. But he is just such a weird dude. I think they've been wanting to fire him, and you couldn't avoid firing him with the way that thing went down. I've never seen that before, ever.
Yep.